getting some new details today on next week's G7 summit in Kananaskis, Alberta. Some of the world's most influential leaders will be heading to the resort town for high-level meetings. According to senior government sources, priorities for the meeting will include international peace and security. Now, unlike previous years, this summit is not expected to end with a joint communique from the leaders. That was a decision made by Prime Minister Mark Carney. Carney has also invited the United Arab Emirates to the summit and Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, who is also on the invitee list. But we have learned today he will not be attending. Someone who will be there is Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. His invitation has sparked some pushback. Just 2 years ago, Canada accused agents of the Indian government of being involved in the murder of Hardeep Singh Nijjar. It's an allegation that India has denied. Last fall, the RCMP accused Indian officials of playing a role in widespread violence in Canada, including homicides and extortion. Prime Minister Carney has defended the invitation, suggesting India is now more willing to cooperate with ongoing Canadian investigations. With more on this, I'm now joined exclusively by RCMP Commissioner Mike Duheme and Trevor Daroux, who is the commanding officer for the RCMP in Alberta. Thank you both for being here. We appreciate you spending the time with us. Now, we're going to get to the security around the G7 in just a moment. Commissioner Duheme, I'd like to start with you and this news report that we're hearing from Global News, saying that the RCMP had to place former NDP leader Jagmeet Singh under police protection because he was under close surveillance from a suspected Indian government agent. Can you confirm that that happened, and what was the nature of that threat?
Well, thanks, Mike, for having both of us. Much appreciated. And you can appreciate, I'm not going to get into details as to why we provided security to Mr. Singh, but it's important to note that we take any threat to any elected official very seriously. There's much rigor in the process to determine the level of security to give to someone and also to remove someone based on the threat. So,
understanding that, but this is someone who is in the public eye. This is someone, if we are understanding these reports, a serious enough threat that, as I had said, it was suspected that there was he was under close supervision from an agent from the government of India. Can you give us any details on that, or confirm or deny that fact?
No, as I mentioned, Mike, we take all threats seriously, and we have a bunch of professionals in our protective policing services that will analyze this and take the necessary steps to address. Either we increase the posture of security or we inform the individual, and it could go from means for increasing as well as property security as well for the individuals. But I'm not going to get into specifics as to why we provided security.
Okay, there's also an ongoing police investigation around the killing of the Sikh activist, as I'd mentioned, Hardeep Singh Nijjar. What can you tell me about the progress of that investigation and how collaborative Indian officials are or aren't being around that?
Well, I can share with you that with regards to the murder, the matter is before the courts right now, so I'm not going to comment on that. But the RCMP has engaged with its counterparts in India, and we are building that relationship. We want to fight the same crimes. We have common interests in it, and it's important to keep on building that relationship with our Indian counterparts.
And I ask because on Friday, Prime Minister Mark Carney said that there were conversations between law enforcement agencies. So how would you qualify how those are going and how cooperative they're being on this investigation?
I would say, Mike, the cooperation is good. Like I said, we are rebuilding these relationships. The conversations have been positive, and we're looking at planning other meetings with them as well.
When do you think those next meetings would be, just to give people an idea of the frequency and maybe when the last one was and when you plan the next one could be?
I'd love you to give the dates. I don't have the dates as to when the next one is. I think last time we met with them, Deputy Commissioner Mark Flynn, I think it was a couple months ago.
And is there an acknowledgement on their part of what they need to do to help you in your investigation? Do you feel like there is that level of cooperation?
I think we want to get to that part of the cooperation, but I want to be perfectly clear. If the matters before the courts right now with regards to the killing, we have sufficient evidence or information that's before the courts right now for the 4 killers in that particular incident.
Now, there are members of the Sikh community who are worried about allowing Prime Minister Modi and some of his officials into the country because of those allegations that you're speaking about. What can you say to those members of the community to help address their concerns and to make them feel better about what's about to happen in the next few days in this country?
Well, for starters, the RCMP is not responsible for inviting any guests for this G7. This was a decision by Mr. Carney, and we will work closely to ensure the security while Mr. Moody's here during the G7. And if there's any concerns, I invite the community to reach out to our liaison officer program, and we can address them.
A few months ago, you had told us that there was a significant reduction in the threats since Indian diplomats were expelled from this country. How would you assess the general nature of the threat by India right now at this time?
I'm comfortable to say, Mike, that we're at the same position that we were. We've seen a decrease. We've done a lot of proactive work with law enforcement. We've set up a task force that was based out of BC to ensure a coordinated approach from what we're seeing in Edmonton as well as Ontario. So I think we've had success in how we handle all this.
So when you say the same place we were at just months ago, or do you feel like it has gotten even better?
We've seen a reduction since we've taken measures, and I'm comfortable to say that we're at that same position with the same reductions, the same level of reductions.
I understand the nature of the investigation, but I have to ask you specifically, has your investigation been able to rule out that Prime Minister Narendra Modi was involved or aware of the allegations that are contained here, that we understand are at the heart of all of this?
I'm not going to make any comments on that, Mike. As you can appreciate, the matters before the courts, there's ongoing disclosures. So I'm not going to comment on that.
I understand that, but this is something that a lot of Canadians are wondering about right now. And I think we can all understand what is before the courts, but there has been a lot that has been said public already, Commissioner, in the past, either by law enforcement agencies or politicians in this country. And there have been a number of comments that have been put out there with significant accusations. So I think Canadians are rightly wondering whether or not you have been able to at least rule out Prime Minister Narendra Modi as part of this investigation.
Well, I would love to stand here to say yes or no, but again, the matters before the courts, and what's going to be disclosed before the courts, then people will have access and can make their own interpretation.
Okay, I can appreciate that. Commanding Officer Trevor Daroux, I wanted to ask you about trying to secure the G7. And I say that because the threat level has changed since the last time we hosted a G7 back in 2018. How do you manage something like this when you consider the current U.S. president was the target of an assassination threat not too long ago?
Yeah, thanks for that. You know, we have a strong RCMP-led integrated safety security group, and we're working very closely with that group. Of course, we have other agencies involved. We have part of that ISSG group, or our sheriffs. We have our conservation officers, the Calgary Police Service, and of course, our partners in the Canadian Armed Forces. So I can tell you that we don't rely on just one single event to inform how we're going to move forward into the next event. We're fortunate with the RCMP as the National Police force that we lead a number of incidents such as this across the country and participate in many around the world. So leveraging that experience and that knowledge and our strong partnerships, as I stated, in other agencies, we're well prepared to deal with any eventuality. And we have to consider not just the individuals, but we have to consider the changing landscape of threat. And that's part of our planning process and our preparations. And we're well placed for that.
Talk to me a little bit about the changing landscape of threat, because we understand where this is happening. It is in a remote, essentially resort town. What have you had to do to ensure that everyone is secure and making sure that there is a free flow or free enough flow of people getting in and out, but especially when you consider how the threat has developed, not only in terms of what we see on the ground, but maybe what is unseen as well, and even in terms of a cyber threat as well.
Yeah, Mike, really good points. And those are the things that we have to be prepared for. We consider not only any kind of potential threat from the ground, we have to look at all eventualities. And it's interesting because as you know, we had the same location in 2002 where and one of the advantages there is we learn from the landscape. It's a very dynamic, the landscape, geography itself, limits access itself, presents actually natural barriers to entering the location, but we have to secure that area. We have to secure it from the ground as well as above, and we have all assets available and necessary to be able to do that.
I wanted to also ask you about how you balance securing the site, but also allowing room for protests. Because, of course, protests are something, obviously, they're allowed in a democratic country like Canada, but there are certain designated zones. How do you ensure, though, that people remain in those locations when their goal is really to get the attention of those world leaders and to get as close to them as possible?
Yeah, as you know, I mean, we have to balance that right to protest with ensuring the safety and security of the individuals that are attending the actual event, as well as the citizens of Alberta, the citizens of this country. So having designated sites that are easily accessible, that provide the adequate space for individuals to demonstrate, and then access to the attendees at the summit itself. And so we're doing that. We've set up cameras virtually so they can have direct access to the individuals there, while not just leveraging technology to actually move that forward. And I can tell you, we worked very closely with the groups beforehand as well. So part of this is cooperation. How do we facilitate your ability to get the message across? And I can tell you, a lot of groups are willing to work in that direction.
Okay, we're going to leave it there, gentlemen. Thank you so much for this. Really appreciate it. Commanding Officer of the Alberta RCMP and RCMP Commissioner, appreciate you both taking the time today.